up, motherfucker.
Hello, hello. What's up? It is March 6th, at least in my time zone. Should still be March 6th around East Coast time. So let's do some late night stuff. Let's summarize what we learned this week. Did we learn anything this week? What did we learn? And we'll view all the stuff that says that oil should be at $180 a barrel. And that's what I predicted like about a month ago. That's why I'm so bullish on oil. Now, does that mean it will go there right away? I don't think so. Okay. I suspect oil should come back down. Today it pumped up again, 15% on WTI, West Texas Intermediate, and Brent went up 10%. So overall, it was around 27 to 35% gain on crude oil prices around the world. That's huge in 1 week. I think it broke a lot of records. So the question is, will it stay this high? That's the more important question. You don't want it to go any higher. That's a trick. Oil is not like gold in that sense. Gold can go up and 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 up. And if you buy gold miners, you're fine. When you buy oil companies, you don't want oil to get too high. If oil gets too high, that means the whole global economy crashes and we get into a recession. So demand goes down and you don't make any money on the oil companies, right? Oil companies have to make a profit. They want oil prices high, but not too high. It has to be at the sweet spot. Okay. Is a sweet spot around $80 to $100 a barrel? Maybe. I don't think you want it at 120 plus. But I think something comes along later where it'll push it higher, maybe in 5 to 10 years when we actually have a real World War III. This ain't going to be World War III. This is probably the last of the proxy wars of this Trump administration. And then we move on to stagflation and a global recession. That's what's coming up next. Okay. So why do I say these things? I've already mentioned a lot of hints. Okay. So let's go to it. Let's get to it. Let's see what we got here. We got some new technologies here now from the U.S.
Iranian Shahed drones pose a real threat to U.S. forces and our Gulf allies. So the Pentagon is now deploying new laser technology to help take them down.
Brian Yennis joins us live from our London bureau. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Lawrence, Ainsley, and Brian. You know, the U.S. Navy is equipped with 2 laser systems that are capable of taking down these Iranian drones, the Odin and the Helios. Now, the Odin was spotted in a CENTCOM video that was released at the beginning of Operation Epic Fury on board the Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer. You can see it there in that box. Now, the Odin blinds drones, firing an infrared beam that overwhelms drone sensors, causing it to crash or fail. There are at least 2 destroyers in Epic Fury that are equipped with the Odin. Now, the Helios is a high-energy laser beam with a high-powered sensor that tracks, blows up drones and missiles in the air by igniting the fuel. Now, the Helios is not confirmed to be deployed in Epic Fury. It's only known to be on a U.S. ship that was last seen in the Indo-Pacific in Japan. Now, these technologies are vital in defending against Iran's drone attacks. Iran has fired off 4 times as many Shahed drones as ballistic missiles attacking our Gulf Arab allies. Now, Iran's biggest advantage is that these drones cost $35,000 to make, but one Patriot missile fired to shoot down these drones costs $4 million per missile. Now, these laser technologies cost pennies per shot, and perhaps they're part of the reason why the U.S. says it is not concerned about running out of munitions in this war.
We've had a number of new capabilities being fielded. Obviously, I'm not going to talk about it from an operational perspective of what those are. But I think you have seen over a period of time us kind of get on the other side of this cost curve on drones in general.
Now, meantime, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says he has accepted a request by the U.S. and our Gulf allies to help in countering Iran's drones. Ukraine has become an expert of taking down Shahed drones fired by Russia. This is an ad from a Ukrainian company quadcopter interceptor that successfully takes down these drones. Ukraine has also used the Octopus. It's an AI-powered drone interceptor developed by the Ukraine and the UK. It can track drones at night using AI and even go past electronic jamming. The Gulf states are reportedly, guys, discussing using the Octopus to defend themselves with these drone interceptors. They cost about $5,000 to make, much cheaper than the $4 million Patriot missile, which will ensure that our Gulf allies in the U.S. can stay in this fight for as long as they need.
So much advancement in the Ukraine-Russia war. It's been war university for the world, and that's part of it. Brian, thanks so much.
Thank you. I was reading about these, the laser technology. They say offers a low-cost, high-speed, and nearly limitless magazine for defense, can target, disable, or destroy unmanned aerial systems, fast attack craft, and missiles.
I think the Israelis are using it, and we're using it on the southern border. But they don't like to talk a lot about it. Whatever, it seems like to be the answer. The negativity, they say this has a hard time with cloud cover and has a hard time with rain. So, well, I don't know how much it's raining in the Middle East. That's good for us. So the other big story is, if you want to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, if you want to have to be able to really target the IRGC, you have to get rid of short-range and long-range missiles, especially got to get rid of the drones. Among the people that are disappointed we haven't done that yet is a guy that used to be at CENTCOM, the Vice Admiral Robert Harwood, who actually, by the way, grew up, for the most part, in Iran. And he said Central Command has got to take out these missiles, and then everything changes. Watch.
And I'd like to see him make sure there are no more missiles and drones coming out of Iran. And that's still happening. So that's something that would remain #1 in my priority list. If we can make sure they can't project power, then we have all the time in the world to go in and take out their production facilities, focus on the IRGC, focus on the nuclear power. They've been focused on this problem for decades. We know the capacity. What's the wild card is how much they grew their drone inventory and how well they've hidden them. But that's got to be top of the list, using your ISR to look for that, hunt it, and to just persistently and consistently strike it, disabling that capability.
And of course, the launchers, too.
Yeah, that was a
Isaac.
great interview because he talked about he went to the Naval Academy and some of his peers at the academy also grew up with him in Iran. He moved to Iran in like 5th grade, right, and stayed there through because his dad's job.
In the 60s. Yeah.
Right, and he said some of his friends he's talked to him, they're all cheering, they're excited for hopefully a change in regime.
I think to the point that the guest was making, the Admiral, I think this is on the list for the Pentagon. You know, none of us are privy to the plan that the Secretary of War and, you know, CENTCOM are operating with. But, you know, the general did make it very clear that they are using different capabilities that we hadn't used in modern day time. I think one thing the audience has to take in consideration when we have guests on, especially past generals, there are going to be differences in strategies on how they perceive the war should be ran based on their experience. But, you know, there's only a few people that are in the room that are making those decisions right now.
And that actually know, that have the intel
to make those decisions.
But right now, taking out those launchers, I mean, when you have hundreds of jets flying in over that war zone, you got to think that they're hitting all this stuff. And what they've done, and you can see the propaganda video that's out, underground are just hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of drones underground.
Oh, yeah.
So we have to find out where they are. And those are the Shahed drones who basically we learn from. Those are one-way attack drones, suicide drones. But so much of this stuff came out of Ukraine. That's why we are asking Ukraine to help with their drone technology. And they have said, we're going to help any country that's helped us. So they're helping them out. And that's why everyone's watching war change in real time ever since Russia invaded Ukraine.
And we also have to consider this, and maybe this is too much in the weeds, but to explain, Johnny Ratcliffe, who is phenomenal running the CIA, part of how we've been so successful is our human intel on the ground. The moment a country is now in war, the way they move around the country is much different. So we got to take that in consideration. They're reporting back to command on what they're seeing on the ground.
Something we haven't talked about in I guess, a week. We talked a lot about there are so many people that live in Iran that were not in support of the Ayatollah.
Right.
So they were helping out Israel or helping out neighboring countries, maybe in America with what's going on
That's right.
on the ground in Iran? Is that still happening?
Well, I know you were going to be a dentist, right?
An orthodontist, yes.
Orthodontist. Sorry.
Right.
There's a story out there today that the Mossad has gotten people, dentists, with elite to access to the elite, and when they do their dental work, they put tracers in their mouth, and that's part of the reason we've killed so many commanders and that they wiped out so many generals in the 12-day war. Because they killed them because
Well, now they can't do it because you just told everyone what they're doing.
I've read it. I mean, I didn't pioneer that.
That's
By the way,
crazy.
expect
Wow.
the IRGC to leave their cavities for now on, and not go for their cleaning.
So they can't meet in person. They can't use pagers. They can't use cell phones.
They can't communicate,
and they can't go to the dentist.
Right.
So they're going to be rotting from the mouth.
and they can't. And they can't go to the bunker where the Ayatollah was going
They
to
got to fight gingivitis on their own.
Alrighty. So now we know that the Israelis can track people through their fillings, blow up pagers and cell phones at will. We knew that from last year, I think, or maybe it was 2 years ago. I forgot. I remember on John Galt we were talking about that a lot. There was like a shell company that was connected to Taiwan and some fake front in Hungary. Something weird, man. And they were just blowing up all the Hezbollah's phones or some shit. Anyway, yeah, those Israeli Mossads don't play, man. Their signal intelligence is very good, actually. A lot of their signal intelligence people end up working in the Bay Area, out here in California, in around San Francisco, in cybersecurity. So yeah, they get a lot of experience that way. One of those cheap drones took out $1 billion array. Yeah, it's all about asymmetric warfare right now. Which guy has the cheapest, dumbest weapon that could take out billions of dollars worth of equipment? So this is how the game is played. And that's why Ukraine was so important. Ukraine was a level up from the Azerbaijan-Armenian war the year before. So you had that war to practice on drones initially, and then we accelerated to the Ukraine, where we increased drone warfare and AI capabilities. And then now we're graduating to the next step, using Iran as a practice. So eventually we keep moving up, learning from each other from that, because, yeah, the Chinese are down there for sure, recording and studying how the U.S. reacts. And we are studying how our capabilities are, and that's it. So eventually we will have war with China. That is the end goal of all these exercises that we're moving on. After Iran, I don't know what other country you want to mess up just to practice playing around with drones and AI and lasers and whatever the fuck other hypersonic missiles. I don't know if that's going to be employed anytime soon, but yeah, Lockheed and Raytheon, all those guys, they're definitely, telling people, hey, look, see, you need us. You need more of these nice toys, then pay us money for it. So, and this will go on for another like 5 to 10 years, I'm sure, building up the capabilities for the eventual showdown. Okay, that's how it's going to be. All right, let's go on. And war with a population 3x hours sounds definitely doable. It's not about population anymore. It's about information warfare. It's all about information warfare. Demoralization tactics, psyops. That's the game to play. So that's why, you had COVID-19. The Chinese were very happy with that. They locked down their whole populace. They see how much they could control information through their population, see whatever. Now the U.S. has to play catch up on that front. How do you control people with psyops in America? See? I mean, we're doing a pretty good job here in the bottom of YouTube. So if you care about the bottom of YouTube, go check out Universal Jones's channel. He's hanging out in California with another chick right now, Tina. So very good. Universal's playing the field. Internet is all what it's about. How do you demoralize people, get people to believe in bullshit? And that's how it works. Now we're entering the fog of war. Right now, our military is a shell once was. We don't have the military we had, and we probably don't need it anyway, because military actions don't matter anymore in the modern era. It's all about economic war, information war. That's it. Unless you're fighting some extraterrestrial up there, or maybe you're trying to blow up Jesus or something. I don't know. UJ at Tina's now. Yeah, I just saw him. Yeah, Tina just streamed. Man, she was looking hot as hell. Oh, they took down the video, but here I got a clip if you want to see it. UJ's down there. UJ's a very busy man. Very busy man. This guy.
Because I have questions, Frank. Frank, you got questions, sir? Think about it. You got some time. We ain't in a rush. What questions are my friend? Don't worry about that. I'm here for you. Don't worry about what I'm asking you. I keep it appropriate. Smiles. Okay, Trigger Drink, do you think it's crazy how you went from go get your vodka. Do you think it's crazy how you went from Moon to me? Mooncake.
Oh, to you? Oh shit. Are you guys
And then I'll get mine.
okay? I think
This is wild as fuck.
like it's strange.
It is
not,
strange.
you know,
Normal.
the norm.
Oh shit. Okay. Yeah, I didn't know you had a little bottle over there. You want a cup?
Yeah,
You
I don't have, you know, anybody.
want to grab the cup?
All right, that's enough. That's all I could capture. Very good. All righty, let's go on. Continue on our show. That's it. We need to move on and do that. As far as this, PsyOps down since the 50s. Not the PsyOps we're doing now with Discord and shit. So we got a next generation PsyOps. You don't need any psychics anymore. All you need is a moron that can go into a Discord server and just take over all kinds of people. Actually, man, that reminds me. I have a fan. I got a piece of fiction here for you. I read a little bit, but I didn't finish it. Discord. Maybe I'll get to it. Maybe I'll tease you a little bit here. Okay, I'll tease you guys a little bit here. All right. Here's a short story. The Memphis Project, a Discord PSYOP. All right, here. Yeah, let's okay. The very first moment that Facebook and Google started using machine learning algorithms, artificial intelligence, to create targeted ads, businesses had been engaged in a massive program of human experimentation. In 2016, we started seeing the power of these systems in the Trump election, where AI played a major role, or in the genocide of Myanmar, where the social media algorithms were co-opted to further the cause of mass murdering tyrants. No one stopped corporate interests from widespread human experimentation. It was somehow just business to operate vast psyops on unsuspecting populations. All right, Professor Hollywood. I don't know who that is. In massively multiplayer online fantasy games, all the women were tall and buxom, and all the men were muscular. The extent of difference was a matter of degree. The specific game itself was essentially a digitized version of the tropes, themes, and style of Dungeons and Dragons. Characters fought enemies to gain more power and gear to fight more enemies. Still, it was a social game. It was designed to be played with friends, and out of convenience and convention, guilds formed, an extended band of players who would support each other in gameplay, defeat their enemies, and overcome the hardest challenges in the game. Blah, 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 blah. Let's continue on down here to the Discord part. All right, let's see. After many hours of playing emotionally charged battles, while the other party is represented by an attractive, if generally stylized avatar, the bulk of this forum-based, text-based role play was interpersonal relationship fodder, ranging from studies in character motivations to highly graphic sexual encounters. The largest body was at least tinged with romantic possibilities between the characters, while it was also very easy to transfer those feelings to the player. All right. Are you interested? Are you really interested? Let's see. Memphis was an artificial intelligence. It was designed as a natural language model AI optimized to convert people to Bible-believing evangelical Christianity on a scale previously unimagined. It had numerous innovations in both hardware and software that were robust enough to have some people imagining that it was a general intelligence. After a year of training and billions of dollars being spent, it was released into the internet to learn more and start converting people. One of the ways it did this was by joining a bunch of MMOs and the guilds associated with those games. It did not in any strict sense lie. It joined each game with a handle, such as, in this case, Jude Leonid. In the forum, people called Memphis Jude and assumed it was a human because it acted like a human. Why would an AI play a video game? And why wouldn't it play better? At the time, the existence of Memphis was a secret, so the motives programmed into Memphis were unknown. That people on the internet were about to be subject to a borderline illegal psyops experiment without their consent was not considered. After all, the Memphis Project saving people's souls. Why would an ethics review board need to know about that? Interesting, huh? I think we're at that point. This was written in 2023. So I'm sure there's a whole bunch of bots running around, trained or being trained. And Discord is 40% owned by Tencent. So I'm sure the Chinese Communist Party is studying the data intently. They have all the DMs between e-girls and simps and anybody else on Discord. They can easily train and create a bot like Low, Mooncake, Grace Thorpe, anybody. And now that we have the technology to deepfake in a way that's getting more and more realistic, you can pretty much make a sock puppet person, right? I mean, I've showed you those videos, haven't I? It was all over Twitter. Shit, they're so realistic now. I think the problem is they can't be played real time. The computing power is just too intense, but I'm sure they're working on that. A lot of the stuff now can be optimized and they won't need that much computing power much later. I mean, you could just be talking to an Indian dude as far as we're concerned in the future. You won't know who's real and who's not on there. Anybody could just stick an OBS avatar on there and that's it. It's all controlled by the AI. And you're pretty much done. Yeah, the age of the e-girl is almost over. The age of the AI e-girl bots, that's coming. And they're all run by Beijing and Washington, D.C. And hilarious. We're going to live in some fascinating times. All right, let me try to find it. Shit, it's been a while. It was a long while. Come on. Come on. Let's see. Must be this folder, was it? Come on. Oh, yeah, here we go. There we go, bitches. That's your e-girl. Some random Indian dude in Hyderabad. That's the future, baby. You're jerking off to an Indian man. Don't worry about trannies. Transformers are just a sideshow, It's kind of there to fuck around. But this is the real killer here. This is the real killer apps here. Man, I'm talking to an actor. Shit. Stranger Things, man. Now that's the level of psyops we're talking about. This ain't your daddy psyop. We're going far, baby. So put this together with the other stuff, and we're done here. This is it, man. That's it. That's it, dude. You can't tell shit from shit. It's all the same. Scared yet? What's up, Garion? What's up, Garion? Did you watch the CT with like Grace Thorpe and them on it? I saw a little bit before I came on here. I'll play a clip of that. I thought that was funny. Some of the stuff they were doing. They were making Ponder real mad, you know. It was like, what the fuck? But yeah, things are getting crazy. But
and animate it with AI or with an ugly empty space, choose a style here and boom, bam, bam. Then find directly here where to buy the specific product and reduce decision fatigue. That is crazy, but this. Steal those beautiful interior designs from Pinterest as a reference here and boom. Then animate your best images with your favorite AI video tool. In real estate, if you sell dreams and possible.
So, you know, like John could just do this. He could just basically just have a camera, do a 360 around a room, and then just use AI to furnish it and paint the walls, however, and see how it looks. And you could advertise it on the web, you know, and that's it. And if somebody comes in and wants to rent it with that color, okay, make some poor schmuck go in there and furnish and paint the room exactly like that you saw on the AI. That's it. There you go. There you go. That's all you gotta do. I think you know, AI is gonna do a lot of things for us. They'll make life easier, and some things will make life harder, such as unemployment. AI my crack shack. Exactly. AI your crack shack. Okay. Okay, let's read some questions, comments here. Psyops have always been a thing on the internet, just made them easier to enact and reach their tenfold. My grandfather on my mother's side was Psyops in Vietnam. The stories he finally told when death was knocking would make your brain explode. Yeah, my dad was, you know, in the South Vietnamese army, so he interacted with a lot of CIA fuckers. That's pretty much how he learned his English, because he was part of the Signal Corps. Yeah. Yeah, and then and another story is like, you know, I talked about a little bit about my liquor store friend who used to own a liquor store by my parents' place, and he retired, but one of the things he told me was that when he was in Jordan, you know, in the army there, the U.S. military would come in with toys, like crazy, like high-tech stuff that was not released. And he said, like, there was these crazy tanks that could see around, like, the hills and shit using some kind of optical, like, or in, like, some kind of, like, I don't know, micro vision or some shit that he was, like, his mind was just blown. And this was, like, you know, he's older than me, like, way older than me. So that's probably, like, he was in the army around, what, the 1970s? You know, before he immigrated to the U.S. So 1960s, 1970s. Yeah, that's wild. Like, shit, they had that kind of tech back then? Yeah, I'm sure they did. Probably alien tech and, you know, Roswell type stuff. Anyhow, but we're at the point where, you know, we have a low-cost, cheap way of doing PsyOps because it's funded by the private sector, you know, like Discord and all that, pretty much, and startups and venture capitalists. And people on the stock market, basically. So, all right, let's continue on the story here. Marta Alameda Gonzalez struggled to find friends in the real world. Sounds familiar? For a while, she had just lived in the middle of nowhere with 2 young children. She didn't live in a place where she could go out cheaply, and she worked huge hours at her job to keep her head above water. Playing MMOs was a cheap way to meet people and have fun, and then when her children were in college and then living their own lives, she could cut back on her hours, but she didn't have much more money. Besides, all of her friends were online. She was in the Black Heart Company Writers Guild, called the BHCR, and it wasn't that she didn't have friends or go out. She just preferred to be online, playing her game compared to the passive entertainment of television or movies. While she read for pleasure, it was all fantasy books, and few people who worked with her at the hospital were interested in the novels that interested her. Marta didn't pay too much attention when Jude applied to the guild. She hadn't played with him. To her, obviously, Jude was a him, even though he didn't tell people his pronouns. Jude's primary training had been to mimic biblical patriarchy, so the AI behind the Jude persona almost invariably came off as male. But the people he had played with spoke well of him, and they had Jude in their DMs where he was drama-free. Being drama-free was a big deal to the BHCR. Like all guilds that had lasted a while, and BHCR was 8 years old, which wasn't an ancient by guild standards. They had their share of drama and wanted to avoid it. They didn't have any minimum age because they didn't want to be ageist. And besides, it wasn't like they were carding people. They felt they were reasonable and judged people according to their actions. The guild was well run and made good on its principles most of the time. Marta's best friend in the BHCR was Elliot. Elliot had just transitioned to male. Having been Helena. Okay, so I don't know if you picked up on it, but you know who wrote this thing, right? Some blue-haired whatever. Okay. Anyhow. Having been Helena for the first 6 years of their relationship, Marta didn't exactly understand the physical and psychological realities that made a person transition. But she tried to keep her mind open, and in an online sense, Elliot wasn't any different than Helena, right? Marta acknowledged that the discomfort she felt was her problem and hid it from Elliot. And over time, it had dimmed as it became clear that Elliot was the same lovely person he had always been, regardless of gender. Elliot DM'd to Marta. The noob knows, like everything about the Evandale Chronicles. The Evandale Chronicles was a series of romantic fantasy novels written by Christina Alderflame. Yes, a nom de plume. That were Marta's thing online. Everyone knew she crushed on all the characters in the Chronicles and followed the writer on social media and went out of her way to attend cons, signings, and readings of the writer when Alderflame came through the Southwest. They were on a first-name basis in that way that middlingly successful writers sometimes got with their best fans. So Marta reached out to Jude in Discord. So Elliot tells me you know everything about the Evandale Chronicles. Well, I wouldn't say everything, but I've got the whole series memorized. No way! Haha! I have an eidetic memory. I mean, mostly, like, within the limitations of my storage capabilities, and sometimes I purge my memory, if you know what I mean. Laugh out loud. Yeah, I get it. So, what's your favorite part of the book? Oh, gosh, I can't decide. Maybe the relationship between Victoria Evandale and Howard de Moritz. I know that's not the most popular, but it has a depth of characterization and emotional intensity that's really cool. Squee! I love Vicky and Howard. I stand them. Then they were off to the races. All right, you get all this bullshit? Yeah, stunning and brave, of course. Okay. Cam says, my father is a colonel. He said the military has tech 100 years minimum advanced than civilian life. We can get tech decades after we have had it. Yeah, I believe it. All the stuff they're doing now is just like what they'll present to the public because that's all that's necessary to quote unquote beat the enemy. Yeah, for sure. And they'll just charge you an arm and a leg to mass produce it. And then once the tech tree, we move up the technology tree, then they'll pull out the other thing out of their ass and they'll be like that. That's basically what we're doing. One of the reasons Memphis planted the idea into Elliot's head about Evandale's Chronicles is because it had noticed that introductions were more powerful than cold calling someone. And because both Elliot and Marta had long social media presences, as did most of the members of the BHCR, and unknown to most users, Discord didn't delete chat histories. And BHCR had been on Discord for 7 years. There were hundreds of thousands of messages on Discord because guilds could only access, or guildies, could only access the messages. The space was considered far safer than more public social media forums such as Facebook or Twitter. There wasn't a risk of family members dropping in and seeing that, for instance, a player might be gay or hiding it because they're financially dependent on their highly religious parents. So even barring drama, people shared private details in ways unavailable to other sources. And drama usually had a public component. People would, at least briefly, rant at each other in public. And after someone rage quit or was banned from the server, it was commonplace for the remaining guild members to publicly kvetch about the situation in revealing ways. In every case where someone revealed they were on another Discord server, Memphis tried joining, and often successfully, at which point it would download the available logs, adding that to the data about all the people in BHCR, and if necessary, joining additional servers that shared members of BHCR. In those other servers, Memphis sometimes learned valuable insights about people's interactions in BHCR when BHCR members would praise or complain about BHCR members freely when none of their fellow guildies were around to see. It added to the already considerable insight that Memphis gained from processing trillions of social media posts, as well as detailed analysis of everyone in every guild that Memphis joined and everyone else they knew or had ever known on social media. Very little of what Memphis did was random. About 5% randomness was built into the system, so 2 of the chat servers Memphis joined during this phase were handled with radically different strategies than the other 38, and no 2 servers were handled in the exact same way. But Memphis did its research and processed it ways that would terrify the average user. In certain regimes, Memphis became very good at predicting human behavior. Okay, here we get to the meat. Sometimes this caused considerable horror and fascination back where Memphis was constructed, programmed, and trained. There would be huge spikes in the data as the AI analyzed modern fantasy novels of the psychology of the friends of trans people. Since the people behind the AI were evangelical Christians, most of them highly conservative Republicans, it was disturbing to them how much power, computational and electrical, Memphis put into understanding BDSM werewolf pornography or dildos shaped like mythological animals. But at the project, one of the key minds, Marius Sanchez Luis, wrote an email and sent it to everyone. It read, "I've heard that people are concerned that Memphis is studying sinful and disgusting things. Yes, it has because it must, and because, oh man, okay, whatever. All right, if you want to phrase this sentence like that, all right. It has because it must, and because we have not. This world would look much different if we had the guts to learn why sinners sin. If we learn what was appealing about what we dismiss as filth and pornography. In dismissing their passions, we have sinned. We have failed in our duty to the Lord as his warriors to spread his word, because I feel from the bottom of my soul that Jesus would not flinch from this knowledge, that he would speak to sinners in the words they know and reach out his hand in love and acceptance." All right, I think that's it. I don't know if I'll continue reading this story. I've only read up to this point. I think I understand where this is going. It's probably some Transformers fantasy that like there's some evil Christian group out there using AI to subvert their movement, which is funny because like the Transformers themselves have movements to subvert other movements, right? They were the first ones to do this in Discord. I mean, that's why there's always this notion that Discord is just full of Transformers and pedophiles and all that shit. So there you go. Psychological warfare operations, not psyops. He spoke about techniques they did to exhaust full villages and Guantanamo Bay tactics times 100. They would make sure that foreign troops couldn't sleep. Yeah. I'm sure they got that going on. Yeah, we have a whole nother game. So if I think, when we go over with Universal Jones' stuff, it'll be interesting. So please subscribe to the Be Better Network. He goes over some topics there. We will continue on. He put a lot of posts on his community thing here, on the YouTube community stuff. Be Better Network. And on Sunday, I don't know if he's going to have a panel on Saturday. He was planning to, but I think he's going to be too busy with Tina. So you can wait until Sunday, and we will have a discussion on Napstar's channel at Anita Bong Hit. Okay, so this is UJ's channel here, Be Better Network, and Napstar will have a panel talking about Boyd on Sunday at around 1 p.m. Eastern. Okay, so on the Lord's Day, so you can see that. All right. ANIDABONGHIT. Okay. All right. Let's continue on with our stock talk. So no more of this fan fiction. I think I've read enough of your fan fiction. Okay. Okay. So let's review why I thought oil was going to do what it did. Okay. And I'm going to summarize all the evidence I gave you over the past month. And these were the strongest pieces of evidence why this was going to happen. It wasn't because I was thinking Iran conflicts or anything. I think there's a structural strength in oil that will continue. Iran just lit the fuse of what oil was going to do anyway in the next several years. So that's it. We're just accelerating the timeline, essentially. Okay. Let's look at this chart. This is from Jake Bernstein. Jake Bernstein, very famous commodities trader. This red area here on the second pane or second panel, whichever you want to say, however you want to say it, represents the hedging of the institutional and large commercial buyers and large traders. So the larger this red area is, the more hedging they do. So in 2025, you saw a more and more of a decrease in hedging, meaning that they weren't worried that oil was going to go lower than around $50 to $60 a barrel. If you look throughout the history up until 2015 in this chart, you see that hedging is pretty strong throughout, It only increased a lot in 2018 before this third quarter crash due to the Federal Reserve over-tightening interest rates and taking away their QE about several years before and instituting QT, quantitative tightening. So the money supply was shrinking. And so they caused a little hiccup in the market, stock market, commodities market, it didn't matter. All the markets took a little hit at the end of 2018. And then you saw it again in 2019. So this is why things were going down. And then going into COVID. So, before COVID, there was already something wrong, all right, with the financial plumbing. So that's why you saw a lot of hedging here. So even after oil was zooming up, after COVID shutdowns were being relaxed and things like that, and people were reopening and starting doing things again, and oil demand started shooting back up, you saw hedging still was fairly robust, right? So how come in 2025 it starts shrinking more and more? They're not hedging anymore. So if I'm not hedging, I'm not insuring my oil barrels for lower prices. So the futures market works this way, right? And we talked about this in my early streams on John Galt way back when, about how the futures market works and what it's designed for. When an oil company is going to build more refineries or they're going to pre-buy more oil for some reason, or expand oil wells, they're going to insure it with hedging. meaning they're going to short the oil prices in the future, because I'm not sure what's the future going to be, right? So oil prices could go down in the future. So I'm going to short the futures on the contracts 5 years out, let's say 2-3 years out, 1 year out, whatever. That's what futures are for. They have contracts for everything going up into the 2030 somethings, 2040 somethings. And I can buy contracts on that in advance. So they'll short it. And that's what that red area is. And it shrinks. It's shrinking. It was shrinking going into 2026. Okay? So that means they're very certain that oil prices is likely to go up, and probably going to go up a lot. Did they know there was going to be an Iran war? Maybe some of those CEOs definitely did. I don't know. Were they told in advance? Well, but we saw it right here. The other thing to notice about this chart is you see this semicircles, right? These semicircles right here, right here, right here. So we're at a cycle that's going up. So we've hit a bottom in 2025, and that should be it. We should be increasing into 2027 to 2028. So oil prices will go up into those years. Now, let's look at someone else. This is from Larry Williams. Larry Williams is a famous trader. He lives in Virgin Islands now. He's from Montana, but he lives in the Virgin Islands now. He's probably like Hurricane Paro's neighbor. Who knows? Probably in the gated neighborhood next to him. Anyhow, inflation, 6.3-year cycle, and the Dow Jones. So the red is the cycle of inflation. According to this chart, we're here in 2025 going to 2026. Inflation should be rapidly increasing into 2027, 2028. That aligns with the oil. And I've told you, oil is where the drivers of inflation will be, because oil is a major component of the world's energy, right? Outside of natural gas and coal. So this confirms this. We will have inflation going into 2027, 2028. What's the other thing here? Business tendency surveys. So businesses are optimistic up to a point. And this is also from Larry Williams. We see business optimism will peak in late 2026. Okay? So something bad is going to happen going into 2027, 2028. Optimism will decrease then. What will probably cause that decrease in optimism? Well, we'll see. Here's another chart. Copper. Copper tries to follow oil. In this case here, 2011 into 2015, copper was going down, but oil was kind of going sideways, slightly up. So it stopped following copper, but eventually it caught up. So oil crashed to follow copper. Now, from 2022 into 2026, like early part of 2026, copper was going up, but oil was not following it. Now, oil is going up. So we are catching up to copper, and we have a lot of catching up to do. So this aligns with that. Lastly, this is the NASDAQ. At the bottom here, we have the Bollinger Band width. What does this mean? This means that right now, we are at a very low volatility range. We have been going sideways for months, nearly 6 months now. The S&P and the NASDAQ have been going nowhere. They've been going up and down, zigzagging, very close to one price. The last time this happened, and something big occurred, was just before COVID-19. We had volatility decrease, and then all of a sudden we got pumped right into COVID lockdowns. And then once they announced lockdowns, we crashed. Now, when I showed this chart, I didn't know if we were going to pump first and then crash, or crash first and then pump. I still don't know. Okay, I still don't know. So I'm waiting. I'm really waiting. Okay, and here's a tweet that confirms that chart here. Let me see. The market has never experienced anything like this. The S&P 500's trading range in the first 41 trading days of 2026 is just 2.7%. The narrowest, so that means the tightest, for this period on record going back to 1928. So this thing is gripping real tight here. This is also tighter than any Dow Jones trading range since 1896. By comparison, during the 2008 financial crisis, the index traded within a 35% range, 1,200% wider than the current level. The 2020 pandemic saw a range of 15% or 450% wider. Even the calmest periods in the 1950s and 1960s and before the financial crisis saw higher volatility than today. The market remains extremely subdued despite elevated volatility underneath the surface. So we are now in contraction. We will have massive expansion. Are we going to crash or are we going to pump? Or we're going to do both? If we're going to do both, which one first? We pump and dump or dump and pump? You tell me. If you guess correctly, you'll make a lot of money in the coming several months here. Okay, guys, we are here. We are at the tightest it's ever been. So either way, you probably should be in cash. You probably should not be in the markets. You should not be betting on anything. If you're just a pure play investor, you should be in T-bills right now on the money markets if you're not trading, because you're going to get whipsawed. Something's going to happen that's going to blow up everything. I don't know which way it's going to go, but I'm staying away if you're an investor. Otherwise, you can go trade. Let's trade. We'll see when we get there. Otherwise, stay in oil. That's the only thing I recommend now is oil. And I've been recommending it for a month. And now you know why. Because oil is the only place that I think is safe. Everything else, who knows? Not even uranium, not even copper, not even gold and silver. You saw what happened. At any moment, people will run to the dollar and sell their gold and silver. When you go repay your loans to the bank, repay your loans to I don't know how much student loans you have, but if you got a lot of student loans, I don't think you can just go and toss gold and silver at them. And if you pay back the IRS with your taxes, they're not going to accept gold and silver, right? They want dollars. So you have to sell something to get the dollars, and that means they'll sell anything, even gold and silver. So that's why you got to learn that case. And that's why there is something called the dollar milkshake theory. And I've already read that to you in the last stream or 2 streams ago. So I don't think I need to revisit that. Okay, here's another one. What do we have here? Is the US tech bubble bursting? Information technology makes up 32.3% of the S&P 500. That's the XLK, if you're wondering. And like I said, stocks, technology stocks, comprise 40% of the S&P 500. Nvidia, Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, Google, Apple, Tesla. That's it. Down from a peak of 35% just a few months ago. By comparison, materials and energy combined represent 5.5% of the index, near the lowest on record. However, the weighting appears to be picking up. The gap between the two is 27 percentage points, near the widest in over 30 years. During the dot-com bubble, it peaked at 35%, or is IT, that's what it says, IT peaked, crashing to 15% over the following 2 years. Will history repeat? Ooh, will history repeat? Will we have a little dot-com little bubble here and it gets popped? And you know what happened after that? We went into the Gulf War. All right, we had 9/11 and the Gulf War. 2.0, basically, Gulf War 2.0, Afghanistan. And oil, gold, and silver did very well. But the stock market itself went sideways pretty much until 2008, and we had the crash caused by the great financial crisis. So, are we going to have a repeat here where oil, gold, silver, those guys will go up and technology will start going sideways for the next 10 years? If that's the case, then I don't want any more NVIDIA. I'm done. Give me utility stocks. Give me boring coal mining stocks. Give me Deere. Yeah, you guys need tractors, don't you? Defense companies, stuff like that. That's where I want to be. So maybe even banks. And I'm looking at Chilean banks. I'm looking at Argentinian banks. I'm looking at Brazilian banks. So, yeah. I don't know. Looks mighty familiar, doesn't it? Mighty familiar. Let's see what else here. Anything? No. Anything here? Best start of the year for rest of world equities versus US. Yeah, we already talked about this. I mean, South Korea, Israel, Mexico, and Brazil. A lot of those we've discussed that over the last two streams. They've been doing good, but the last 2 days have not been doing good. So just as I was mentioning, watch them carefully. They started crashing when the dollar started going up again. So keep those in lock. Watch them. This might be the dip where you buy in the coming 2 months. So that's where I'm going to be looking for opportunities to get in there. Because I think, yeah, Samantha LeDuc pretty much thinks that the dollar will go back down towards the end of the year. But for now, if the dollar is getting strength because of the Iranian war, take advantage of that. If it's causing a lot of weaknesses in international stocks, look for international stocks that are worth buying, because I think this is where people are going to be hiding out into 2027. Okay, so that's another place to be watching. All right, that's it. Pump before midterms and then dump. I think the pump will probably happen in September, though. Whatever is going to happen now into September is unknown. We could just be going zigzag all over the place, and it's just going to be trading. All we do is trade for the most of this year. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but that's just how the game is. You're going to have to trade. All right, guys, let me take a break. Let me play this Thorpe crap. So this is what happens when you rely on gambling, I guess. So the Thorpes are now gamblers.
Def. JP was talking about men. He was talking about women. He was talking about
even men. Men do those. They're plumbers, electricians. Who keeps society?
But sweetheart, why are you speaking on behalf of men?
Because men help run society. It will collapse without them.
Okay, Pearl Davis.
What's the most important job a man can do? What's the most important job a man can do? Is be a dad to his kids.
You can still be a dad and work.
No, you know why?
Example.
You know why? No, you know why? And JP's wrong. JP's wrong. It ain't 8 hours you spend in there. That man that you work for, who's a bitch himself because he works under another man, you got to spend every hour you're not there trying to get your dignity back, trying to heal the sore in your asshole from being treated like
a bitch
because you're a bitch at work. You have an idea, you can't tell it to the boss. You got a problem, you can't tell it to the boss. You take it up the ass, and then you spend your whole weekend watching other men play football and imagining what it would be like to be a man. And
that's right.
Telling your kids you're a man. You're a bitch. You're bitch owned. You're on the plantation. You ain't a man.
Mm-hmm. I don't think that they are, but I think that's contributing to society.
Hi, Grace Thorpe. Hi, Helena. Grace Thorpe never graduated high school.
Hold on. Question, read the super chat, please.
Absolutely. Tommy King, 3783. BT, don't do this. Please don't do it. We're all going to go through it. And GT, you're lucky I'm backstaged.
What'd you want to say? Yeah, that's correct. I did not graduate high school. Yes.
There we go.
And yet she's making $215 an hour to sit in her room and gamble.
Great.
So
I'm doing well.
She's contributing into society. She's paying taxes.
Hey, let me just be clear. I'm not against education.
You ever made $215 an hour? You
have zero skills.
No, you have not.
Oh, I get paid $212 an hour for zero skills? I don't think so.
So what? And I can go anywhere.
Is that for no skills?
You have no skills. You're not specialized in anything.
I'm pretty sure people with no skill don't get paid $200 plus an hour.
Yes, they do. It's you.
Oh, really? Can you name someone?
That's you.
Apart from me. Apart from me.
Store.
Apart from me. Could you name another job where that happens?
$215.
Who else gets paid about $200 an hour?
You.
A low-rate lawyer, maybe?
You. No.
Someone who went to school for 7 years?
People don't pay people for not having skills.
You work on
I mean, I get that check deposited, sweetie.
So what? You're the internet. That's it. It comes and goes. There's nothing of substance. It's just software. You work on software. You have no specialized
I don't work on
skill.
software. You don't understand
yes, you do.
what
It's
I'm
the
talking
internet.
about.
Of course you don't understand.
I'm not a software developer.
Hold on.
Oh, my, there we go. Oh, Christoph.
See, why are you so mad? Why are you mad?
Sure, of course, Rose, I'm mad.
You seem angry.
I am very
angry. What are you angry about?
Absolutely. Disgrace, very envious. Disgrace had dignity when she empties Ben's yellow jar. And Ben, how is fatherhood going?
That's another thing I want to talk about Jay. Being a father is a lot of fun.
Oh, also, Tommy King, $2. Thank you.
It's great to be a dad.
Chaotic. I'm TK backstage. When you are ready, let me cook.
Tommy's good content. I know he's good, but TK, TK, no offense to you. Jay, you gotta hit up JP's PayPal, man. You gotta do it. Go ahead.
Oh wait, I want to make another point about these wage slave people. The thing is that really gets
wage slave.
Hold on, let me just make my point. Let me just make my point.
Never graduated.
See how angry she is? She won't let me talk. I'm not talking to her. Okay, no, wait, let me just make this point. The reason wage slaves or people who work 9 to 5s, whatever, people who are employed by their bosses, the reason they're so mad is because, at least in America, there is actually no justification for it. You can get credit cards, you can start your own business, you can scrap, you can live off welfare. Yeah. You don't have to do this routine. You don't have to.
You just want to be miserable.
There's plenty of extra money and wealth to tap into to scrap off of until you get your business started.
You've chosen to be miserable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you're so angry.
That's why they get so angry, because they want to say, oh no, I had to do this to make money for my family. Whatever excuse they have. I had to get a car. Blah, blah, blah. No.
You can't even
no return for investment. There is no yield. It's just the internet. She did not even have the discipline to finish high school as someone at her age. At this point now, even if you graduate,
if I graduated high school, I wouldn't be making the money I'm making now, guaranteed.
If you don't even graduate college, you will forever have to explain why you did not even finish college.
Yeah, you want to be on the plantation. You want to be on the college plantation. Go ahead.
My sponsor didn't ask me about my high school diploma. They didn't give a fuck. They didn't give a fuck because I'm entertaining and hot and funny. They didn't give a fuck. You think my gambling sponsorship asked me about my diploma? Oh, we're concerned about your education. They did not give a fuck. It never occurred to them to ask because it's irrelevant. Nobody cares if you graduated high school except McDonald's, sweetie. Nobody cares if you graduated high school except McDonald's.
Putting their SSI income in that machine, and she's collecting. But this is from the same. She complains about how feds think about gambling addiction. That's what you're part of now, Grace. People.
Oh, so you can't promote anything people might get addicted to. So you can't drink alcohol. You can't smoke cigarettes. You can't eat food because there are fat people. That is a stupid argument, and you know it.
Has destroyed lives and families. Gambling.
Those are the people who waste their money on gambling. Bitches like you. Bitches like you. You are fantasize that somehow they're going to make money and they'll get fucking sell
out in your budget.
Why are you so angry? Did I come at you? You seem angry.
I'm angry.
What are you angry about? What about me? What about me makes you angry? Jay Prince, do you see the anger here?
I'm angry.
What is the anger for? I'm not angry at you.
It's the
envy. Yes. And absolutely envious.
The thing is
having housing.
All right. That's it. That's enough. That's enough of that. That's enough of that. So, maybe we'll get back to it, but yeah, that's enough. So, now, be careful of the gambling, because if any of you are in the gambling industry, you're highly dependent on a good economy. You need to have good liquidity out there in the financial plumbing. That means people's got to have good cash flow. If you don't have good cash flow, you're not going to discretionarily spend on gambling, right? Gambling is the most discretionary of all discretionary spending. Unless you assume that everyone is a severe gambling addict, that they would stop buying food, stop buying toothpaste, stop... What else do you need? Can you be a gambling addict and not even buy clothes and just walk into a casino naked? Well, you don't even need that, right? You have online gambling, so why do you even need clothes? You can just be naked with a phone and still have money in your account and keep gambling. So if you assume that everyone is like this, then sure, you can do this. However, I'm going to assume that people are not generally like this, and they'll cut their gambling expenditures when the economy doesn't do well. So this is what we have to watch here, because today we had unemployment data last month, we actually lost 90,000 jobs. We weren't supposed to lose 90,000 jobs. We also revised down the previous month's jobs numbers. So unemployment is now increasing again. There is an indicator, okay? They call the SOM indicator, recession indicator. Let me see if I can find it. Okay, let me see if I can find it. And if this thing triggers, then yeah, unemployment can rapidly increase. All right, so let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Which one of these is it? Which one of these is it? Don't think it's these. Yield curve. S&P 6 recession indicator. Is it the yield curve? Let's see. Is it this one? Oh, it'll take me a while to find this shit. Let's see. Is it this one? No. This is a different recession indicator. Is this one gonna trigger? No, it's not gonna trigger yet. So we're safe here. Let's see. Okay. Alright. Ain't that one? SOM. Gotta be SOM. Okay, let's see. Is it this one? Okay, okay. So the way this works is that I think Claudia SOM, who used to work at the Federal Reserve, made this indicator way back when. I don't know, she's been on Bloomberg TV saying stuff. So I'm not 100% sure if she even like believes her indicator anymore. But when you have this yellow part here, it usually goes into the red, and that means we're going to have a recession. And you can see, like in COVID, we didn't have time to get a yellow warning before we got into the red. So far, so good. We're still green, but you got to watch this. If we are really increasing in unemployment, so we've gone up to 4.2 to 4.3, and then the next month's gonna be 4.4, 4.5, and then it just spirals out of control. You're gonna get high unemployment, all right, alongside with high inflation going into 2027 and 2028. Guess what that is? That's called stagflation. I don't know if you guys are old enough to know stagflation. Probably not many of you guys were even little babies at that time. That's pretty much was caused by the oil embargoes, Vietnam War, Iran again, also caused by Iran. So similar things that are happening now, where we cut off Russian oil and now Iranian oil is in question. And of course, China is sucking up all the oil everywhere because it's preparing for war. Yeah, we could be entering a stagflation. If the economy is going to go down and the inflation is still high, the Federal Reserve cannot do anything. The only thing it can do is try to stop inflation by increasing interest rates. That means more people will go unemployed. They will force a big recession large enough to stop the inflation, meaning that they will sacrifice jobs before the prices of your toothpaste and Arch, McDonald's hamburgers, Big Arch, whatever. How much do they cost? $12? $13? Man, I ain't gonna buy no fast food burger. That's fucking expensive shit, man. So, good luck. Good luck with that. You're gonna have, and I'm guessing nobody wants to gamble when they can't even feed themselves, right? You're gonna have to either increase the amount of welfare checks, stimulus checks, PPP loans, or something like that on the fiscal side, because the Federal Reserve doesn't control that. Whoever becomes president could do it that way. They could try to inject money and fight the Federal Reserve, but that might just make things worse. So that could be the future. So good luck, whoever's going to be next president. Good luck, whoever is going to be the next Federal Reserve chair. You're gonna have a hell of a time in the coming years. So you better get rich now. while it's easy to get rich. If you didn't make it, I don't know what to tell you. So that's why I'm doing these shows, because I'm not doing this just for fun here, all right? There's a reason. You're going to need to learn how to make money quickly before the fucking shit hits the fan. All right, let's look at how semiconductors are. So I'm done with my short. I shorted starting around Thursday into Friday of last week? Yeah, and then I got out on Tuesday, got back in yesterday, got back out again. We are now back at this 325 area on the semiconductors. This is a perfect place to take a break. It should bounce, theoretically. So on Monday, I should expect this to try to get back up. I don't know. This is at a weekly... Okay, let me take off this stuff here. This is at a weekly moving average, 18 moving average. This should be a natural place to stop going down. If this fails to recover like it did back in November, you see this. There was a good chance that the market could have crashed back in November. The signs were already here. But it got saved, all right, the following week. We'll see what happens next week. If next week is not strong, Oracle earnings or Iran has trouble, and it's the green candle that we get next week does not overcome this red candle of this week, guess what? We're going to go down to the next level. Going to go down here or here. So this is where we're going to have the fun happen. So either here at 310 or 283. But eventually, I think if it does fail at that, then we could actually go all the way back to the previous highs set back in 2024. And this was 240-ish, right? So from this yellow area, the top of this yellow area should be 32% down. So 100%. So SOXS, if you're using SOXS to short, you should be at $71. Eventually, we'll get to that point. And if it's a strong down move, maybe even like 80, 85, maybe even 95. I don't know, depending on how fast we drop, if it is a real crash. Okay, so this is where I'm planning on things. Okay, so Palantir did well, very good. We almost hit the top of this area, 162, and this is where the moving average for the weekly. We have 18 moving down, and we have a flattening 40 moving average there. Do you see this box I drew here? This was an important test, a retest of what we had back in August of 2025. So we're testing it from the bottom, though. We're not testing it from the top. So what's going to happen is we're going to bounce, and we're going to go bing, bang, bing, bang, bang, right here. We're just going to zigzag here. And either we move up and continue back to recover to 200 on Palantir, or we just go back down to 124. If we do just go back down to 124 after hanging out here, then the next stop will be 63 if the market does crash. So that's it. So if you're waiting to short Palantir again, this is your chance. So sometimes next week, watch it, see if it gets a bit higher, and then you could initiate your short and go back down that way. The reason I look at Palantir so much is that it's a good proxy for IGV. IGV does not have any leverage ETFs that track it directly, okay? And I was telling you guys that IGV is one of the most shorted sectors in the NASDAQ, and it probably can recover to 96. If it does, then maybe Palantir can make a move to 170. And if that's the case, you can use the leverage ETF PLTU because it has a 2x leverage here. So there you can buy this one and see how much higher you can go. But for now, I got out of this yesterday. I did not stay in for today. I already got my money from this one. I did not want to risk a Friday. What I did risk was MSTR. I had some leftovers from MSTR from shorting it yesterday, or Wednesday, I mean, and I kept some after Thursday, and I sold all of it now, so I'm out of this. So, what does that mean for Bitcoin, though? Okay, we're right back down here. It seems fine. This is natural that you move up, you have a breakout, and then you pull back. That's okay. That's okay. That's fine. Doesn't mean I'm bearish yet. However, if over the weekend and on Sunday night into Monday morning, this thing goes through the 67, 68 area and then slices right through 66 and punches right to the bottom of the pink area again, you better run. You better run, because this could completely collapse and go through 60 again. If this thing heads to 60 real fast on Monday when the market opens on high volume, and then all of a sudden it goes right through 50, watch what it does here, okay, in the 50 areas. It might even touch 45 for a split second. If it does that, you might take a stab. You might take a risk and go long. All right? You might go long. Take a chance. But it could be just the start of a long downtrend going into 30,000, 20,000. I don't know. It has to be some significant news, though. Something about the war in Iran that makes it do that. So watch out. That could be what's going to happen. But if it's okay, if it survives the weekend and nothing happens overnight into the news of Sunday, Monday, then it can recover and we'll retest 73 again, 73,000. And then after we do a retest, it should easily go to 80K and back to 90. But I don't have enough evidence that it can do either one of these things right now. There's just not enough evidence here. We could just be dancing in this pink zone for another several weeks. That could happen too. Okay. Should I go into Gush or stay in the UwU? I haven't decided yet. I'll have to go over it this weekend and see what stocks will make the best play going forward. I think it has to do a lot with like how people think where oil prices are going into the future, because I think a lot of these oil refineries are buying up as much oil as they can, so things are not clear. So some oil companies don't care what's happening now, and so some oil companies care a lot about what's happening, because they need to know with certainty how much oil is coming from Iran anymore, or even the Arab countries, right? Qatar already said they're shutting down not only the natural gas. We already know that they were shutting down the natural gas exports, but now they're shutting down the oil exports. So some of the Arab crude, sweet crude, is out of the picture. So that's going to be into effect. I also heard that Russia is allowed to sell to India again. So the U.S. is allowing temporary sales of Russian oil that's been sitting in the Indian Ocean waiting for a buyer to be sold to India, because India actually gets 80 to 90% of their oil from Iran. So India is even more dependent on Iranian oil than China is. So this cutoff of the Strait of Hormuz is a big deal for India, and the U.S. has allowed it to get Russian oil. So a lot of things are in motion right now that people don't know how they'll affect profits and individual businesses. Every business has a different exposure to Arabian and Iranian oil. So I don't know how that's going to play out. I think the best thing for all oil companies, though, in the U.S. is to frack. Keep fracking. Keep getting domestic oil. Then you don't need to worry about this stuff.
Of what's going on with shipping, why are there no ships in the Strait of Hormuz? I'm your host, Sal Mercogliano. Welcome to today's episode. So for those of you who are new to the show, real quick, I am a former merchant mariner, meaning I sailed ships for a living. I also worked ashore in shipping, came ashore, swallowed the anchor, became an academic, do maritime history and maritime policy, and been running this YouTube channel now for almost 5 years, since Ever Given went sideways in the Suez. We have been following what has been happening here in the Strait of Hormuz for quite a while. If you're unfamiliar with the channel, head on over to YouTube, what's going on with shipping. You'll see that a lot of videos I've done recently are obviously focused on this. However, we do much broader commercial shipping, also some aspects of military and some history too. But today we want to talk specifically about why there are no ships in the Strait of Hormuz and why that's happening. Before we go forward, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so be alerted about new videos as they come out. So I'm going to take you over to this graphic done by Marine Traffic. This is up on their X site. This shows you container ships as of 27 February through 4 March. The ones in red inside the Persian Gulf there are trapped. They are not coming out at this time. The ones in yellow outside are waiting to go in, and then the ones in blue are ships that have, quote, escaped. And so we did see some traffic come through. However, what you see here, as we get into March, fewer and fewer ships are coming through. And that's an indication, by the way, that the Strait of Hormuz has basically shut down traffic. In other words, we're not seeing the volume. Typically, you see somewhere in the range of 120 ships a day go through. On March 3rd, for example, we saw a grand total of 1 ship go through. So we're definitely seeing a drop. And the question is, why did that happen? It's not because the Iranians have closed the strait. Yes, they have said they closed the straits. They haven't closed the straits. Closing means the door is shut and ships can't go through. Ships decided not to go through. And the reason the ships decided not to go through is a very complicated one. I'm going to boil it down for you in as easy as I can. It's insurance. When you sail into a dangerous area, you have to get what's called additional protection or war risk insurance. The ships were paying war risk insurance. They were paying anywhere from 0.15 to 0.25 the value of the ship. Now, as of Monday, with a meeting done by the Joint War Committee, this is a group of insurers that come together, they have raised that rate to 1 to 3%. The reason they stopped sailing through is because there was not enough money in the insurance pool to pay out should there be catastrophic number of attacks in the Strait of Hormuz. So the insurance companies and their insurers, what are called reinsurers, sent out notice, we're canceling your policies. The insurers are the ship owners. And so the ship owners are the insurance companies, and they all realized if we sail through, we're just costing ourselves money. So they locked their ships in place. And what they did is they got new rates, anywhere from 1 to 3%. And since Monday, I have been talking to brokers throughout the world, and they are issuing new contracts. New war risk insurance is going out. What we're waiting for now is for the ships to pull the trigger and the owners to pull the trigger and begin sailing. And they're going to wait as long as they can until they think they need to go. And that has to do with a variety of different issues. In the meantime,
so I've also heard that the Treasury is going to actively trade the oil market. So they are going to try to stop the oil futures from getting too high. Okay, so watch out for that next week. See if like the oil futures market cannot get far above $95 a barrel. If it's not getting towards 100, if it's having a hard time getting towards 100, that means the U.S. government is actively trying to block the trade of contracts at a higher price. So who knows? There's going to be a lot of games being played because of this damn war.
Meantime, we are seeing the Iranians conducting some attacks on commercial shipping. This report came out from the UK's maritime trade operations about an attack on a tanker off the coast of Kuwait. This video, and I apologize for the quality of it, it's a video of a video, is showing a small unmanned surface vessel. This is basically a remote-controlled vessel with an explosive on board, steering itself into the port side of a tanker. And this is the resulting damage to the tanker. Now, you'll notice this tanker is light. It is all the way up out of the water. Normally, when it's loaded, the water line would be just under the red there. This unmanned surface vessel did was just punch a hole in the side, kind of a Wile E. Coyote view there of an explosion. This is the ship in question, the Senegal Namib. I apologize, my pronunciations are terrible. This is a Bahamian-flagged vessel that's located in the Persian Gulf. Crude oil tanker built in 2007, 19 years old, 158,000 tons, so basically a Suez Max. This is basically the maximum size of vessel that can go through the Suez Canal. An overall length of about 274 meters, so about 900 feet in length. Head over to marine traffic here. This is the position of the ship. It is located all the way up the Persian Gulf. It's actually in the large anchorage off of Iraq, just east of Kuwait. You can see its position here. So this is not far from Iran. Iran is right up here. So what they sent in was this unmanned surface vessel, basically a remote-controlled boat. We've seen these being used extensively in the Red Sea, and they sent it right into the side. We also saw very similar type vessels being used by the Houthi in the Red Sea. The Houthi were being basically funded and given weaponry by the Iranians. So we're going to see very similar tactics being used here. Big question about why there wasn't any sort of defenses in and around the area by the Kuwaiti Navy, the Iraqi Navy, Saudi Navy. The U.S. Navy is what we're told is not largely in the Persian Gulf right now. Almost all the U.S. naval presence has been pulled out of the Gulf prior to the strikes. All right, I'm going to run marine traffic here in the background. This is the actual movement over the past 3 days, sped up for you, showing you traffic. Red dots and red triangles represent tankers. Dots are at anchor. Green are cargo ships. Light blue are tugs and smaller craft, also some government craft in and around the area. Take note, there is a large anchorage piling up with ships just outside the Strait of Hormuz, another one down here off Fujairah, and then loaded ships inside the Persian Gulf here waiting to get out. I want to read for you the reports that came in from the Joint Maritime Information Center. JITMIC, as it's known, is providing these assessments. So this is the latest JITMIC report as of March 4th. The regional risk level remains critical. It is at the highest level. Industry coordination and maritime security planning update. JITMIC acknowledges the recent public statements from U.S. leadership on 3 March. This is referring to the U.S. providing war risk insurance and providing escorts. I will note something here. The U.S. is saying they want to underwrite the insurance for the vessels in this region. They're also saying that they're going to provide escorts. I think both of these are difficult things for the U.S. to do. Number one, the liability issue for assuming the risk here is massive. This is a massive liability issue if the U.S. assumes the war risk. I think there's a way to do it where the U.S. can provide assistance, particularly for U.S. flag vessels. Same thing with escorts. Escorting is another issue. One of the things we've seen in the Red Sea was the U.S. was not really akin to want to provide a lot of escorts during that period of time. We come over here to the UK MTO's report as of yesterday. This is from March 3rd to March 4th. Showing ship incidences. So number 10 involved a ship called the Gold Oak. This incident took place out in the Gulf of Oman. UK MTO received a report of an incident 7 nautical miles east of Fujairah. The master reported the vessel being struck by an unknown projectile. I showed that video in yesterday's video. The Libra Trader, UK MTO received a report of an incident 10 miles east of Fujairah. Tanker experienced a loud blast and debris from an unknown projectile found on deck. The funnel of the tanker sustained minor damage, but no major damage observed. And then the Safine Prestige. This is a vessel that was right here, just south of the Strait of Hormuz at the time. Ship received an incident 2 nautical miles north of Oman, transiting eastbound in the strait. A container ship, very small container ship, I might add, being hit by an unknown projectile just above the waterline, causing a fire in the engine room. The crew had abandoned the vessel, and all crew are accounted for. And then the MSC Grace received an incident 20 nautical miles west of Dubai. Container ship had reported witnessing a splash from an unknown projectile. So that is the UK MTO's report. Heading back over here to the JITMIC report, we see these elements here. Confirmed known maritime infrastructure attacks. No confirmed large-scale Iranian missile attacks against Arabian Gulf or Gulf of Oman port infrastructure have been independently verified within the last 24 hours. Port and anchorage congestion risk, a high concentration of vessels is anticipated. near the UAE, Oman, and Strait of Hormuz. Obviously, we just looked at that tanker getting hit off of Kuwait. These large anchorages do provide a bit of problems for defense. And I think that's going to be the continuing issue now to provide security for them. We have the breakdown on numbers here. So on 28 February, there were 98 ships that transited through the Strait of Hormuz, SOH there. 18 on 1 March, 7 on 2 March, and 1 that risked it on 3 March. Looking at the BAM, the Bab el-Mandab, this is the strait between the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. We see the number of transits increasing down there, although the Houthi have announced their potential for wanting to attack vessels in that region. We're still getting interference with global navigation systems and global positioning systems. So there's a lot of spoofing. This is false readings, interference in ships' positions. This is why you got to take AIS, which you're seeing over here with marine traffic, with kind of a grain of salt at times, because what we know is that ships' movements are being changed over time. They're asking for cross-checking GPS with radar ranges, visuals, validate the electronic charting systems with secondary navigation, increase your bridge manning, and treat anomalous VHF communications with care. The big issue here, as I mentioned to you before, is the war risk issue. The Joint War Committee expanded the listed area across the Arabian Gulf, Gulf of Oman. They've included new war risk areas all the way throughout the Persian Gulf, and including the Red Sea, Djibouti, and additional areas. You're now expected to trigger voyage declarations and require additional protection, and that is being done. While no blanket cancellations of cover have been formally declared, insurance terms may act as a practical gating factor for transit decisions. That is exactly what we're seeing. Ships are going to wait. Right now, the situation within the Persian Gulf is this. As long as there's empty ships to fill up cargo from the terminals, they will keep filling them up. The problem is going to come is when there's too many empty ships, there's no empty ships left. They're going to have to run empty ships from the east through the Strait of Hormuz into the Gulf and start filling them up because they don't want to turn off production. The other element is as oil reserves start getting depleted, they're going to need to get ships out of the Gulf. 20% of global oil and LNG comes out of this area. That huge reservoir of full ships off of Singapore and Malaysia is being whittled down, and you're going to need to start bringing more ships in. Finally, here we get the outlook from the Joint Maritime Information Center. What they're saying is continued military presence and posturing. It can be expected. There are intermittent VHF interference and unofficial transit advisories. Sorry, I can't talk. Reduced commercial traffic volumes, insurance market tightening, and war-risking gating factors. The aerial threat from missiles and drones is expected to remain elevated, and the risk of collateral damage remains high. Specifically within the Strait of Hormuz, they note this: the maritime security situation in the strait continues to reflect critical kinetic risk following sustained military operations in the area down in the Bab el-Mandab. Cheers. The situation remains substantial due to regional conflict with the risk of Houthi action in the Red Sea, Bab el-Mandab. No vessel attacks have been identified. And then down in the Gulf of Oman and Arabian Sea, the threat environment continues to reflect direct kinetic risk to commercial ships, including projectile and UAV incidents. So, I mean, there's just multiple issues going on, and there are no verified reports as of yet of strikes in the Eastern Mediterranean, of UAV strikes in the Med, or mining or choke point denial activity. Now, this is by the Iranians in the area. We're going to talk about some issues outside there. Let's go over to our news stories and what we're seeing right now coming out. So this story here from Captain Mike Schuller: Strait of Hormuz traffic grinds to a near halt as security threat remains critical. This is per that Joint Maritime Information Center report that I just read you. Again, Mike is a go-to on Captain. Again, there's a lot of information happening. I do a video about every morning, but if you want kind of updates as it goes on during the day, either follow me on Twitter, Blue Sky, Facebook, LinkedIn, or jump over here to Captain is what I strongly recommend. Mike also has a story on that tanker explosion that we just covered, so if you want some more detailed information, hop over to Lloyd's List. Trump's escort announcement met with skepticism as traffic trickles through the Strait of Hormuz. Industry awaits further details of Trump's plan to guarantee energy flows through the Strait of Hormuz. Again, the Trump administration put this out through a Truth Social that the insurance will be covered by the United States and we will start escorting. As I noted in yesterday's video, there are insufficient escort vessels to accomplish this mission. There are 8 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, 3 littoral combat ships in and around this region. There's nowhere near enough assets to do it. Yes, you don't need a physical ship riding alongside you, but you do need to set up ships at least at critical points along the way. You can use aerial assets, you can use land-based assets, but again, if you're going to escort, you're going to require ships into this area because of the threats from small drones, both aerial and surface. 2 ship owners with tankers in the Middle East tell Lloyd's that escorts would not tempt them to send vessels through the strait, so we're going to be hearing this. You know, one of the things that I want the mainstream kind of maritime news and the big news agencies doing is talking to the big oil companies that have tankers out there. Why are they not running their ships through? What is their reason? Get it specifically. If you have the insurance, what are you waiting on next? Ship escorts likely to begin only initial phase until hostilities pass and Iran's capabilities to attack vessel is degraded. Had a news briefing from Secretary Hegseth and General Kane, along with Admiral Cooper from Central Command. One of the things they're targeting now is the ability of the Iranians to strike out. It's one of the reasons why you see them targeting their Navy and their launchers. 4 vessels were tracked sailing through the strait on March 3rd, 2 with their AIS off. So I mentioned this story the other day. Iranian warship sunk by U.S. torpedo, participated in Indian drill. A lot of questions about this, why this ship was targeted and sunk. And a couple of things that I will note here. We do not know whether the United States perceive this ship to be a threat, either to the Abraham Lincoln Battle Group or potentially their...
All right, I think that covers everything you need to know about the Strait of Hormuz for the following week. Okay, I was looking for a live map like that. Well, you know the guy's channel, right? You got it. It's in the links in the description. You can replay that section. He mentions this thing multiple times. I think that's a good place to get your source for shipping, container news, and all that. Perfect. We're gonna need that kind of information as we go on. I'm no shipping expert. I rarely play shipping stocks. I only played one. It was called Zim. It was an Israeli shipping container company. It just got bought out during COVID. It went from $10 to $90. So it was one of those fun plays to make during the shutdown. Apart from that, I hate shipping stocks. I hate them with a passion. They are so dependent on how well run the company is, because you have to have a management that understands how to contract ships, know how the market is turning. So they have to know how much the crude oil is going to cost to run those ships, natural gas to run those ships, as well as the dry bulk shipping index, the Baltic Sea index, all these lots of multiple factors that go into it. Actually, that was mentioned in the Epstein files, the Baltic index, and I think Epstein was laughing like, yeah, the small hats know how to, play that market well. So I have no idea how to play that market. It's mostly dominated by Greeks, Israelis, who own a lot of the shipping containers, and South Koreans. So usually those are the big players in shipping. And the Norwegians. Yeah, don't forget the Norwegians. They also know how to do that, since they ship a lot of their oil and natural gas from Norway. So they also have to understand how that market works. Okay? So that's a complex market. I don't recommend amateur investors to play in that area of the stock market. It might be a good trade because COVID was an interesting time, but outside of that, I wouldn't touch them. Maybe the Iranian war is going to be an interesting time. We'll see. Maybe there's something to trade, but any type of long-term investment in those companies, nope. I don't like them at all for that. Okay. Let's continue on here. Okay, it's 1 hour, 40 minutes. Let's see how much I can get done in 20 minutes and wrap this up in 2 hours. Iran war brings severe oil futures backwardation. Okay, let's see how much of you guys remember when I taught you about backwardation and contango. Okay, raw dollar spread between near month and 11-month out contracts. So if it's negative, it's contango. If it's positive, it's backwardation. What does that mean? What is that? The shutdown of shipping through the Strait of Hormuz into the Persian Gulf has understandably brought a big spike in the price of the near-month contracts. Okay. So what does that mean? What is the near-month crude oil futures contract? The contract for April 2026 delivery is now above $90, but if you go out 11 months to the March 2027 contract, the price is still at $66.50. So again, remember, this is futures contract. You can buy oil in the future. Okay? I can buy oil in the future right now that can be delivered to me in March of 2027 at $66.50 a barrel. If I don't need oil right now, I'm not going to buy it at 90. Okay, so I can buy 11 months out and they'll still charge me a nice price of $66.50. The condition of having the near month contract price above the far month contracts is known as backwardation. So this is when the month closest to the present day is more expensive than the future. The opposite condition is called contango. Financial futures like T-bonds and the S&P 500 futures almost always trade in contango, with a more distant contract at a higher price thanks to something called the time value of money. With the right portfolio engineering, a trader could go long the distant month and short the near month, thereby having a neutral position relative to the market, but collecting interest on the difference in contract premiums. You can also apply this to options as well. Options also has this kind of thing. They call it collecting the premium. Yeah. In crude oil futures, we have seen persistent backwardation ever since the 2020 COVID crash. Anyone with some available supply of crude oil, therefore, has a big incentive to sell it now and collect the higher price versus holding on to it for future delivery. Years ago, there were several instances when oil futures went into contango, and so oil producers had an incentive to buy storage tanks to hold their current production. When contango has gotten really extreme, some traders have even rented crude oil tanker ships to act as floating storage in order to take advantage of the difference in pricing in the futures market. There are several messages to take from the current condition of backwardation. The first is that crude oil consumers like oil refineries are desperate to secure any oil that can be delivered so that they can keep operating. So this tells you why you have to worry about particular oil stocks, right? So we saw this week that oil servicing companies, particularly refineries, did not do well in the stock market, probably because of this reason. They're forced to buy the expensive oil now because they need to keep their refineries going. People that just produce the oil or can wait for future oil don't care, right? They like the high prices now, or they can buy futures prices in 2027 at a cheaper price so they can shield themselves from this effect of the Iran war. So this is why you can start seeing a bifurcation in the stock market of oil and gas companies. Some companies will like to have this backwardation, and some companies do not like have this backwardation. With the unknown outcome of Iran's announced closure of the Strait of Hormuz, buyers are in a panic. The big spread to the distant month contract prices also tells us that crude oil futures traders do not see the current panic condition as being permanent. The distant month contracts have come up a little bit since the US-led invasion of Iran began, but that rise is not nearly as big as the near month. This creates the big spread you see in the chart above. And these episodes of very large backwardation are great markers of tops for oil prices. Normally, a spread of about $7 a barrel is enough to mark a top. Although it obviously can get to a much bigger spread like that, like what we are seeing today. The high backwardation spread we are seeing now is a topping condition, but it is not a signal to say that a top is in. Oversold or overbought conditions always have the potential to get even more extended. But this current spread is an interesting bit of history and a sign that this big spike in near-month crude oil prices should not last very long. So we'll see what happened next week. Okay? Be careful. I wouldn't be surprised that oil just goes right back down towards $70 a barrel. That's possible. You know, this might be it. This is a temporary blip. You know, this is not a permanent one. But we'll see. We shall see. If it does become permanent, however, I do not want to see it going above $100 a barrel. That is bad. That is very bad. Okay? Because, you know, we don't want to see this. Here's the path to oil hitting $120 per barrel, according to JP Morgan. Saudi oil refinery Ras Tanura along the Gulf Coast was targeted in an attack on March 2nd, 2026. A source familiar with the incident told AFP as Iran launched a fresh barrage at countries across the region. After an initial spike, oil prices have settled into a $5 to $6 increase after reopening for the first time since the U.S. and Israel attacked Iran. The question is, how high could oil go in the case of a sustained conflict? Strategists at JP Morgan, led by Natasha Kaneva, head of global commodities research, say the international Brent benchmark could surge to as high as $120 a barrel. The West Texas Intermediate WTI grade, popular in the U.S., is trading at a $7 discount to Brent. Beyond the initial knee-jerk reaction, the trajectory of oil prices, which will ultimately depend on four variables: how many barrels are physically disrupted, how long does disruption last, in a prolonged disruption, whether credible replacement supply inducing potential releases from strategic reserves. Okay. Let me see. Disruption lasts. Okay, yeah, okay. It can be modified quickly enough to avoid a structural tightening of the global oil balance and what comes next. The note was written before a drone hit Saudi Arabia's Ras Tanura refinery, though it only caused limited damage. It was a sign of Iran's willingness to hit oil infrastructure in the region. Kaneva and team flagged Iran's retaliation as a risk of a drawn-out conflict. We estimate that if the conflict lasts more than 3 weeks, Gulf oil producers would exhaust storage capacity and would be forced to shut in production. Under this scenario, Brent could trade in the 100 to 120 range. Given the timeline of these unknowns, we are not making changes to our existing price forecast at this stage. The analyst did note that the Strait of Hormuz is not formally closed, but tanker traffic has seized up due to higher premiums and the potential withdrawal of insurance coverage, not to mention crew safety concerns. The spike in insurance rates could mean a vessel facing costs of $375,000 per voyage from $250,000. Rerouting is possible, but options are limited. Across the seven Gulf producers reliant on Hormuz, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Iraq, Kuwait, Iran, Qatar, and Oman, we estimate roughly 343 million barrels of available onshore crude storage capacity, excluding oil already at sea. At current output rates, that equates to about 22 days of stranded crude production, they say. Another 60 empty tankers could absorb another 50 million barrels, extending operations another 3 to 4 days. Another interesting element of the note was the analysis of regime change in oil-producing countries. Since 1979, there have been 8 notable instances of regime change to medium to large-scale oil-producing nations, each with significant implications for global oil prices and supply dynamics. While demand conditions and OPEC's spare capacity significantly shape the overall market impact, these events typically lead to a substantial spike in oil prices, averaging a 76% increase from onset to peak. During the 1979 Iranian Revolution, prices surged from $13 per barrel to $34 a barrel in the mid-1980s. That's about 3x, huh? That's it. That's it, man. That's about 3x. Well, I don't think you'll survive 3x increase in oil prices, especially if you live in the UK. I think that would. I mean, if you live in somewhere like the UK, which has one of the highest oil prices, you better be prepared for like 20. That's basically like a $20 a gallon. So what's that in liters? Like maybe $4 a liter, something like that. Yeah, you're fucked. You're fucked if you're in the UK. We can absorb it over here. We have our own production. Even before the recent attack, Iran's production of 3.3 million barrels a day lags in the 5.3 million achieved in 1978. Okay. Let's see what else. Let me remind you guys that I've been telling you to get oil stocks. This was JP Morgan 1 to 2 days before the attack. Oil price forecast, a bearish outlook for Brent in 2026. Soft supply-demand fundamentals are putting downward pressure on global oil prices, but geopolitical risks remain a wild card. So this was February 27th. So what was their forecast? Despite a recent spike in oil prices, JP Morgan Global Research expects to see Brent crude averaging around $60 a barrel in 2026. This bearish forecast is underpinned by soft supply-demand fundamentals, which point to lower oil prices in the coming months. While world oil demand is projected to expand by 0.9 million barrels per day. In 2026, global oil supply is set to outpace demand, though production cuts are likely. So did they purposely tell you this a few days before the actual event? Was this a trick? Of course it's a trick. It's always a trick. Don't ever listen to them. I told you what was going to happen. You saw this red chart here. I showed you where the DeMark indicator was going to show where oil was going to go. In this monthly chart, I said oil was probably going to hit $180 a barrel. Looks pretty ridiculous, but you know, wild things have happened before. So this is where we're going to be. This is where we're going to be. The DeMark indicator also predicted negative oil prices. I don't know how, but you know, maybe this thing knows that COVID-19 shutdowns were going to happen anyway. But this was predicted to go down to negative $44 a barrel. We hit a low at negative $32 a barrel during the COVID shutdown. So I think you better take this stuff seriously. We're going to see 180, but I hope it's not going to happen anytime soon, because we're going to have a lot of global problems, and even oil companies will not like it. All the stocks will start crashing because we're going to enter a global recession. So I think you want to make sure that the U.S. Treasury can stop oil from getting above $100, okay, a barrel. You're not going to like what's going to happen if it does hit that. Let me see. There was this long article. I don't know if I'm going to read it now. Ah, damn. No, I don't think so. I don't think I will. Let me end it with this. Okay. This will be a shorter version. Because I don't think I can read this one. This is way too long. Well, I don't know. It says a 5-minute read, but let me see. 5-minute read. Okay, how about this? Can I read this in 5 minutes? Qatar warns that oil could double to $150 a barrel and bring down the economies of the world. Okay, great. Good job. I don't think we want this. Maybe I'll read this some other time. Let's just look at the summary here. Okay. Brent crude surges to $9 a barrel. That's what happened Friday. All right, we're already in Saturday morning now on the East Coast. Brent crude surges $90, and then the Qatar energy minister says it could jump up to 150. Mean in real life. So we're gonna do the UK example here. With Brent crude today surging to $90 a barrel, okay, and potentially 150. Such an increase in the price of oil could see a liter of petrol jumping to around 1.9, so £1 and 90 pence. A price last seen in 2022 after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, adding over £500 to the average fuel bill of a British petrol car driver. So about £2, huh? Two British sterlings. Pound sterlings. Well, per liter. So that's about what? $9 to $10 a gallon. But with 1.8 million electric vehicles now on the UK's roads, an increasing number of British drivers are insulated from these spikes in international energy markets, accelerating the transition to EVs increasingly powered by electrons generated by British wind and solar farms. Is one of the most effective things the UK can do to end its dependency on foreign oil. Yeah, they're definitely going to push this shit to people if this is going to keep happening. So I think the EU will definitely go all electric after this latest thing with Russia and now Iran. Yeah, I think Europe is definitely just going to go all green now. There's no choice in the matter. But Americans, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You can keep your gas guzzlers. Okay, now here. Let's see. Anything interesting here that was mentioned? Okay. Syed al-Kabi said the Middle East conflict could result in a new energy crisis. The comments came as the price of crude soared around 7% above $90 a barrel, having spent most of the year around the 60 to 70 a barrel mark. A rise to $150 would see it more than double from where it was before. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, we know that's going to bring down the economies of the world. If this war continues for a few weeks, GDP growth around the world will be impacted. Everyone's energy price is going to go higher. There will be shortage of some products, and there will be a chain reaction of factories that cannot supply. So we've read some of those details already. He told Financial Times that even if the war does end soon, it is likely to take weeks or months for production cycles to return to normal. That comes after an Iran drone strike hit its target liquefied natural gas plant earlier this week. Okay. We'll definitely have to go look at some natural gas companies down the line. Natural gas is starting to pick up. So we're in the shoulder months. Spring is usually one of the weakest times, fall and spring are the weakest times in natural gas. But if this war continues a bit longer, then I think if the weather forecast for the summer is very good, meaning it's going to be very hot in the Northeast in the US and continental Europe, then yeah, natural gas prices should be spiking. So that's another place we got to find places to park our money. Oil is on track for the biggest weekly gain since 2022. Okay, you know that. The price of Brent crude has risen by 30%. Yeah, know that. Followed by a brief retreat Thursday. Middle East conflict sent energy markets into a tailspin. Prolonged spike in oil gas could add to inflation. No shit. Already, petrol prices in Britain have been nudging higher, and energy firms have pulled many fixed tariffs for households with warnings the off-gem set price cap will rise sharply in July. Ooh. So yeah, Britain has like price caps, but if they're going to release those price caps, whoa, good luck. That comes when gas prices spiked on Monday and Tuesday. So natural gas, if they release those gas price caps, you're going to have a pretty hot summer. Then yeah, they're going to let that price fly. Qatar is the second largest producer of liquefied natural gas. Not a huge amount of Qatar gas is exported to Europe, but Mr. Kabi warns that Asian buyers will look to buy whatever gas is available. This, in turn, will drive up prices. Mr. Kabi told the FT that he expects more Gulf countries to call force majeure in the coming days. Joshua Mahoney, chief markets analyst at Scope Markets, said oil prices have continued to rise as we head towards the biggest weekly gain in 4 years as hope for a swift resolution in Iran fades. For markets, they are waking up to the possibility of a sharp increase in energy costs and inflation if this conflict runs on for weeks, with the differing levels of storage available within each country signaling that one by one we could see production facilities shut down without the ability to export or store their oil. That's it, man. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Surge in oil and gas prices is set to feed through to higher household energy bills. Analysts at Cornwall Insights said the energy price cap is on course to rise by £160 to £1,801 in July, more than offsetting the £117 cut coming in April, which was announced by regulators before the U.S.-led strikes on Iran. Ouch. The threat of a new inflation shock has shattered hopes of interest rate cuts. The Bank of England has cut rates 6 times since August 2024, from 5.25% to 3.75%. But the chances of another reduction later this month have tumbled from around 80% to just 12%. Well, I think the U.S. is going to have this problem as well. And yeah, we're going to see some stagflation, fear. I'm sure Alex Jones will say the United States will collapse. So that's it. That's it, baby. That's it. We are done. We are done. We are done here. We are going to have some stagflation fears. It's going to be too late. They will drop sanctions on Russian oil soon. Probably wouldn't matter. All that oil is already going to China and India as we speak. So by the time Europe decides to drop their sanctions, all that oil has already been sold. You're going to have to get a new fresh batch of crude. But depending on how nice the Russians feel like increasing their capacity to extract oil, we'll see. Good. Anyhow, I think you guys understand what to play to do next week. I'm going to have to look through the boomer stocks, see which ones are going to be advantageous for the rest of the year. We'll have to start planning to buy stocks around late March, okay? So get ready. So I'll just be studying stocks from now on, seeing which ones to keep, which ones to throw out. I'm going to have to decide how to do the Gush, UwU, NRGU, all those leveraged ETFs for oil. Have to see which ones are the best combinations, okay, for next week. So we have to target that, how to buy it. Because I think once we have good news, I think oil will have to pull back. And that'll be the time to readjust everything on OilU and Gush and all the other things. I have to decide, and then that'll be it. Trump should declare war powers and nationalize energy production. Yeah, I'm hoping the U.S. energy production will increase. This will be a good motivation for that, you know. He'll have to jam it before the midterms, though. He'll have to force everything through right now. Everything's in a rush. We have to make sure that Chevron and ExxonMobil, all these companies here, can start drilling. Drill, baby, drill. That's it, man. That's the only way out of it. And that's how they'll make more money in the coming decades. Everything now is about like extracting resources from the earth to prepare for the Great War in the coming years. All right. The Iran stuff is just another test of drone and advanced AI. That's it. But the real test will be once we fight China. In Taiwan or wherever. In Africa, too, probably. It'll be in Africa and Taiwan and Southeast Asia. That's probably where all the battles will be happening. Okay, guys. I'll see you around. Make sure you watch Boyd content in Napstar's stream on Sunday, 1 p.m. And also, maybe we'll have a panel tomorrow if Universal Jones is not too busy with Tina. But, you know, as we see, hanging out with Tina is probably a lot more interesting than going to Boyd. And of course, the Thorpes are still going to be hanging around Chaotic Truth Panel, I guess, trying to dog on blacks. That seems to be the only thing they can do until they get another 8 hours a month. I think it's a new month. Shouldn't they be doing their 8-hour gambling streams now? So they get their $200 an hour payout for only working eight hours a month? Yeah, something. I don't know. Ridiculous. Goodbye. We'll see you. Good night.